Thomas, I have a hard question for you.
Mhm.
You talk about it so differently now than you did when we were working through this with you, 6 months ago, 8 months ago. But knowing what you know now, you have this crazy background in contribution margin. You were steeped in it. And yet, when it came to talk about your superpower and what you were going to do, it wasn't on the table. And I'm
No, it's
so
wild, isn't it?
curious why and your thinking and like how that flipped because it seems so obvious, but it wasn't obvious to you.
And I don't really know the true answer apart from maybe what I thought I was doing something that really interested me that I thought was fun because I'd done it for a long time, which was taking products and moving them across the ocean, and making them successful. And I hadn't really thought about what the next level down was of that. And that was, it wasn't just about the product. It wasn't finding great products. It was finding the operational excellence. And the operational excellence was down to the contribution margin levers. And then we got into and that was where the aha came.
So, Thomas, if I could, I love where Kat's taking us. Where in the discussion during the academy, as we are talking about your own category design, of course, and your own superpower, what were the set of insights? Were they around that or were they around different things? To Kat's point, that gave you the language that you now have to communicate the difference that you make, AKA the category of one you are,
Hmm.
when we all remember when you came into the category, and I say this with love, respect, and admiration. When we asked you, hey, Thomas, what are you doing? Why does it matter? There was a lot of yada, yada. I don't know what Thomas is talking about that showed up. And now you have a clear point of view. There's a clear enemy. There's a clear problem that you're solving that you frame around ROAS, et cetera, et cetera. So how
It
did you
was
get?
super weird. It was so weird because it kind of happened in this sort of epiphany. I remember it so clearly because I was late to the call and I was trying to listen on my phone in the car, and then I got back to my desk and I managed to get a jam session in just in before we closed. And there was a few things that happened. The original concept, I was really struggling with iterating, as you say, and I was struggling with the pipeline. I think we discussed the concept as well. Of the pipeline was so damn long, and I was also kind of concerned about how I could fund that long pipeline of moving product over, and how I was going to bill for it in that way. And we had some heart to hearts with Eddie over this. I only had a few messages back and forth plus the jam sessions. And it was only in that jam session where I, maybe the shaken by my head a little bit on, when we talked
Thomas,
about
I
this.
don't remember the heart to hearts. I'm sure we had them. Can you just for the people who are going to be in
Well,
the
I was saying,
academy and
yeah,
and like what was that like? Because I'm sure some of it was not pleasant.
it was, well, yeah, it was not. It was more for me. You were always so respectful on the calls and on the in the messages, and always very supportive. But at the same time, you're like, dig deeper,
I
think
must have
more,
missed that
do
call
this.
where we were respectful because
Yeah,
generally,
you went on that one. No, it was very much dig deeper, look harder, niche down more, focus on, and it was so, and you just kept pushing and pushing and pushing to find the next. Sometimes you would just say, this doesn't sound right, or this is off by this. Go back and look at this, or think about this again. And you might remember, I did this in the academy. We have the different sections that go month by month, and I think I did this first four sections maybe 3 or 4 times over and over again because I just knew that something was off on the very first month. When it's off in the first month, I then got to the second month and I was like, something's still off. So I'd go back and redo the whole thing, and then every time you made a comment, I was like, still something's not right. I need twisting, and I was really contorting to try, and I ended up trying to fit a square peg into a round hole with from my original concepts, and I just wasn't thinking hard enough about it. Through those conversations, and then the real aha where you really pushed me in that last the jam where it suddenly was like, say that again. That was the moment I came off that, and it was like a light bulb. And the crazy thing, because I was super worried at this point. Spring was coming, and I'd given myself, it wasn't quite Easter by that point. I'd given myself till Easter that year to really get my shit together. And my wife was also kind of said, come on, like, it's what time's getting on. And I was feeling a bit of pressure, to be honest, because I'd been just, I wouldn't say dossing. I'd spent a lot of time just working on the academy stuff. And I had a few clients doing a few things, but nothing. was going to pay the rent, as it were. And that moment, something just triggered inside me. And I had a couple of meetings completely unrelated, funnily enough, to what I was doing. And I walked into one office to help a guy about the category design problem he was having. And I was like, let me see if I can help. And I was always pushing him, you've got to read the books. And I walked into his office, and at the same time I was telling him that someone else in the other side of the office was having a problem with a particular company that they were shareholders in. And they said, hey, how are you doing? What are you doing now? And I literally iterated what I was doing now so clearly in exactly that way. But yeah, I do this margin. Yeah, I'm a margin guy, and I work on contribution margin. And they were like, we've got something going on right now. We'd love to. And 3 days later, I'm like sat in meetings restructuring an organization for them. And within days, I've had another
Thomas.
random call.
So you just described a 3-day sales cycle. What did you think the sales cycle?
But the 3 days was them just getting their paperwork together. The sales cycle was like 30 minutes.
Okay,
that was
30
the
minutes.
wild thing.
What was it before that?
I mean, we were talking months. I mean, I think I'd asked you a few times about like, hey, I've got this. I don't know how to price for this particular thing. And how do I do this round? I'm now worried about round one. Am I giving them too much? Am I giving too much away? What do I do in phase two? How do I finish this? Because there was this whole long cycle that I couldn't work out how to price. And you were very kind, but you were also like, you need to think harder. This isn't going to work for you, and you're not going to make any money. And also, I wasn't valuing myself properly previously. But all of a sudden, this iteration allowed me to really value myself.
So when you value yourself, I'm hearing you went from a sales cycle that, let's call it 30 weeks, down to 30 minutes.
Yep.
And all you had, the magic words.
So hold on, Eddie, help me with the
languaging.
math. When we take a sales cycle that used to be 30 weeks and we shrink it to 30, we said seconds.
30 minutes, I think
minutes.
he said, but yeah.
30
30
minutes.
minutes.
Okay, let's go 30 minutes. So 30 to 30 is what percentage reduction in sales cycle time?
That would be 3 orders of magnitude. What would have been 30,000 minutes, 30 weeks, took 30.
If you could kind of crystallize for us, how do you go from 30 to 30?
So in that conversation, it was just having a really clear vision of this is what I do, and this is why I do it, and this is my experience of why I do this stuff and how I've done it in the past, and do you want it or not?
You know what, Thomas? I remember observing at the time, and Kat totally is right. We see it now. Is not only did you have the right languaging, and not only did you backed it up with like decades of outcomes that you had, your swagger is way off the charts. Different. Different.
That moment, the swagger changed so dramatically. I just had such clarity at that point. It was just something very, very different. It just everything triggered. And I think that also the difference was that when I previously talked to people about this is what I do, even when I was throwing as much swagger as I could at it, didn't feel like there was a confidence in that. But it held the room. The concept held the room. And that was the fundamental difference, because no one talks about this stuff. And so it's not news to them, but it's fascinating.
Okay, so hold on. Let's break this down. So is what you're telling us, when you have a radically different point of view that frames, claims, and names a problem that others view as a highly strategic, important problem, and you communicate that in a unique, compelling, differentiated way, they, A, want to solve the problem, and B, assume you're the guy. Is that what you just said?
And also understand the value of solving the problem.
The value of your value. Yes.
There you go.
Excellent. Said with some swagger. And of course, Thomas, it must be declared, you do have an unfair competitive advantage with that mustache.